Hello and welcome to the Lions virtual draft party presented by Miller Lite. We might be joining each other from our home offices, our living rooms, our couches, but we are still together and it is still a party. I'm your host for tonight, Tori Petry. We have a star-studded list of guests joining us between now and the start of the draft at 8 p.m. tonight. We will hear from those guests about what the Lions might do with the number 3 pick, what it's been like getting ready for this all virtual draft, and maybe what some of those guests' personal draft nights were like. You'll hear from people like Bob Quinn, TJ Lang, TJ Hawkinson, maybe even Barry Sanders will drop in and hang out with us. At the very end of the show tonight, Lions legend and analyst Chris Spielman will be joining us to get you guys involved. We will be doing a fan Q&A with Chris, so you guys can submit your questions for Chris to answer. Let's get started submitting those questions right now. You can put them in the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are watching from, and we will pull from those questions to ask Chris later on tonight, just before the draft starts at 8 p.m. But first, let's get to our first guest of the night. That is Lions team president, Rod Wood. Rod, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure, Tori. Different times, but we're figuring it all out as we go along, and this is it's a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to be hosting a virtual draft party. It's the first of its kind as far as I know.
Yeah, I can't think of another one that has been like this, certainly not in my time covering the NFL draft. It will be an interesting night for sure. Give us a little bit of insight of what it has been like on the team side, getting ready for a totally different NFL draft.
Well, it's been different. I think it was really 2 or 3 weeks ago when this possibility started to become something that we were discussing about doing the draft from home. And I will tell you, at the time, it seemed like an overwhelming project and how it was going to be pulled off, and could it be pulled off, and how would we do it with communication tools that we were more accustomed to using then than we are now. And at that point, we'd only been working from home for a week or two. So even working from home seemed weird. But since then, I think as we've got more comfortable with our technology and, how we prepared, the draft board and the players that the scouts and the coaches have met with, and our IT people have been unbelievable. And so I'm sitting at my home office and I've got my laptop and my Surface and a large screen and 3 cell phones and 2 desks and a lot of paper and backup Wi-Fi and a full house generator and a TV. And so, I feel like we're ready to have the draft, and it feels kind of normal now because we're more used to working at home. And I think the fact that we've had a couple of practice runs and we had the practice draft with the league on Monday, I think we're ready, and we feel much more comfortable than we did 2 or 3 weeks ago when it looked like something that was impossible to pull off.
Now, you've been on the inside of this, seeing what this final product will look like. Give fans a sense of what they should expect when the draft goes live at 8 p.m. tonight.
Well, I think, what will be interesting to see is if the draft actually is, different in that, everybody's working from home. Every team's, separated. The teams are separated from the league personnel. Normally, we would be calling our picks into 2 of our representatives who are in whatever city the draft's being held in, and they would write down a name on a card, and you'd run it up to the front desk, and the commissioner would read the name. Now we're, communicating that through a different site. Hopefully, it gets to the league on time before the clock runs out. And I think because of that, you may see a few different things in terms of how much time it takes for picks to occur, and maybe there'll be, less trades. Some people have speculated on that because it's going to be harder to pull them off. Maybe there'll be less trades because people have had less time with some of the players, because of the working from home situation and not having players in the building. But it could be a draft that goes just as normal. I don't know what to expect, candidly. It's probably the least predictable draft because of a lot of that, which might make it that much more exciting and interesting for people to watch. And I think that the other thing is, because it's going to be one of the first, if not the first, big live event, I think all 3 days of the draft are going to be really exciting. It's not just going to be who got picked in the first round. I think there'll be tremendous interest in the second round, third round, and even into the Saturday, 4th through the 7th rounds, because people are anxious to hear something other than the news and watch sporting events that occurred 20 years ago on ESPN. So I think it's going to draw huge interest.
There is really an aura of excitement around this year's NFL draft. Rod, real quick before we let you go, what would your message to Lions fans who are joining us on this virtual draft party be before the draft starts tonight?
Well, Lions fans, pay attention to us tonight. Root for us to keep adding good players to the team. And I would love all Lions fans to consider supporting Feeding America, the charity that we chose as part of the Draft-a-thon that's going on. And the team has kicked it off with a large donation. And Bob and Matt and I will each be making a donation along with every pick. And most of the money that we're going to raise is going to stay right here in Detroit and help the people that are supporting all of us on the front line and need our support right now. So Lions fans, watch us, root for us, and consider supporting Feeding America. And as always, go Lions.
All right, good stuff there from team president Rod Woods. Let's get into talking now about what everybody wants to talk about on draft night, what the Lions will do with that number 3 pick. To do so, we are bringing in Tim Twentyman and Mike O'Hara from DetroitLions.com. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump right into it. Tim, we will start with you. Do the Lions stay at 3? Do they drop back? What do you think happens?
Well, they've got options. I think there's going to be some interest in their number 3 pick, whether that's Miami or the Los Angeles Chargers moving up for a quarterback, maybe even an offensive tackle. They know New York is probably looking that way at number 3. And so if, they like somebody, they want to get ahead of New York, that's a perfect spot. And so really the Lions and Bob Quinn are in terrific position. They can go get the player that they want at number 3, or they can move back a couple spots, get another pick in that top 85. They have 4 of them right now, and still have a guy that they really like of those kind of 3 kind of game-changing defensive playmakers. So the Lions are in a great spot tonight.
All right, one of my favorite things on DetroitLions.com is Mike O'Hara's mock draft. He's done about 60 billion of them since the whole draft process started, but obviously we have a final one before the draft starts tonight. Like most people, you have Joe Burrow going 1, Chase Young going 2. What do you think happens at 3, Mike?
Well, I projected that the Chargers will be the team to move down into number 3 with the Detroit Lions because they have a more desperate need for a quarterback and less ammo. So they've really got to push it to get ahead of Miami, to get ahead of the Giants if they want to make a move, and they move in. Now, look, this is not a perfect science. There's a remote opportunity or remote possibility that I could be wrong. But if the Chargers move into 3, then the Lions move into 6. And I think at 3, the Lions take Jeff Okudah, cornerback from Ohio State. I think they take him at 6, but they have other options, like Tim said. I think they're in a great spot. The only thing is some teams got to pull the trigger on a trade.
Certainly. Obviously, to trade, it takes 2 teams to do that. Tim, we talk a lot about the 3 guys who are most likely for the Lions to take in the first round: Isaiah Simmons, Derrick Brown, Jeff Okudah. In your mind, what's the difference in those 3 guys and what impact they will make on a team? Obviously, all 3 really good defensive players, but where does the dividing line stand?
Well, I think when you look at immediate impact, I think you got to look at Jeff Okudah. Here's a guy that can come in, be the number 1 or the number 2 outside cornerback, opposite Desmond Trufant, who they got in free agency. So when you're talking about immediate impact, there's a guy that comes in, steps in, starter impact player, fits what the Detroit Lions do on defense in terms of his man coverage skills, quick feet. You see the ball skills right there, and he's just everything you want in a corner fits to a T. And then when you look at Derrick Brown, look, the Lions still need some help on the interior. I think he can play anywhere from the 0 technique, which is the nose right over the center, all the way out to the 5 technique. I think he's that versatile. He's just, the word I describe him is he's just a bully. When you watch film on him, he just is a bully to those interior linemen in the SEC, and that's saying something in that conference. And so, I think he pushes the pocket. He's a difference maker there. And then obviously we all know about Isaiah Simmons, the terrific athlete out of Clemson. I think the one issue that I have with Isaiah Simmons is, most likely we're not going to have spring football here. And so, I think it's going to be really tough for a guy like that really doesn't have a set position. I think teams that go after him are really going to have a plan for him, know where they want to put him and not put too much on his plate, especially if he doesn't have a spring season. So I think you really got to have a plan with him. Terrific athlete, most upside in this draft probably, but a little bit of an unknown. So when I rank them, I look Okudah, biggest impact right away, Derrick Brown second, and then Isaiah Simmons has the biggest ceiling, but you really have to have a good plan for him.
Mike, I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Would you give them those same rankings?
Yeah, the same thing. I like Derek Brown #2, almost by a coin flip. I like Okuda a lot. I like Brown a lot. But I'm not as sold on Simmons as some other people are, just because there's a little bit of uncertainty where he's going to play. And at that rate, I don't like uncertainty. But I had a chat with Chris Spielman today, and he made a good point. A defensive tackle is a rotational player, is going to play about 50 or 55% of the snaps. So you don't get the same value in terms of time on field that you would get with a player like Simmons, if in fact you have a plan to get Simmons on the field to play 70, 80, 90% of the snaps. So I think it's a good point by Chris, but I'm standing firm. This is one of the few times I think I might win an argument with him. I really like Derek Brown.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight on these potential draft picks. We will see if one of the three of them becomes a Lion or if it's somebody else entirely. We can't wait to see what happens with that #3 pick. We have got so much more coming up in the show, so stick around, fans. We'll be back just after the break.
When you're home, there's nothing like enjoying a classic with a classic. Miller Lite. Great taste and only 96 calories.
Welcome back into the Lions virtual draft party presented by Miller Lite. I'm Tori Petry. Later on in the show, don't forget you can be submitting your questions right now for Chris Spielman to answer them just before the draft starts. Next up, we have a very special guest joining us, TJ Lang, who will be joining me later in the night as well after the Lions select their pick in the first round. TJ, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on our virtual draft party.
Absolutely, Tori. Exciting time of the year. Finally, nice to have a little bit of football back in our lives with the draft. I know it's an exciting time, obviously, thinking back, 11 years ago now. Seems like forever ago, but such a great time for a lot of these young guys finally realizing their dreams about to come true.
11 years ago. Do you have any memories from the night you were drafted?
I've got a lot of memories. Yeah, I think, I knew going into the draft that I wasn't going to be a first-round guy. I didn't think I was going to be a second-round guy, but felt like there was a good chance at the third, fourth, maybe fifth round. And got a couple calls after the first round was over from my agent. So there's a couple teams looking at me in the second. Ended up going all the way to the fourth, which, look, I'm not a guy who ever carried a chip on my shoulder about where I got drafted. I was just so thankful and grateful to have an opportunity to get a chance in the NFL. And I think the best thing about that whole day was I think I got drafted like 11:45 in the morning. I was the 9th pick of the 4th round on the Sunday. And it was just it was a party after that. I didn't know what was going to happen, but being surrounded by my parents, my family, brothers, sisters, all my aunts and uncles, everybody was just such an amazing time. And when I actually saw my name come across the board, it was just it was surreal. It was surreal. I think all the work you put up to that moment, and to finally hear your name get called and get the call from for me was the Green Bay Packers. Everything just kind of hits you at once, and it's very surreal and one of the best memories that I will have. I will definitely cherish that for the rest of my life.
I love it. Oh, hold on. It looks like somebody's trying to join our chat here. We'll see who it is. See if we can welcome them into the chat. Oh,
wow.
Who it is.
What's going
Matthew
on?
Stafford. Thank you.
Low security on this, huh?
How y'all doing? That's right. Anybody can get in.
We were talking about the 2009 draft, and I just had a feeling you were going to come in and kind of steal my thunder. Obviously, I went 108 picks after you did, so congratulations.
I'm here to. Yeah, I'm here to one up you, bud. No, it was
as
a
usual.
Cool day. Good question. Yeah, that's right. It was
As usual.
it was a fun day for me there. It was a fun day.
Yeah,
Short
I
wait,
bet
but
it
So what
was.
do you remember from the night? What do you remember from the night you were drafted, Matthew?
Yeah, I actually the night before I got a call from my agent saying that Detroit was probably going to be the place, and then I got another call. I was at dinner with a bunch of friends and family, and I stepped outside the restaurant. My agent Tom Condon gave me the news I was going to go first to Detroit, and I got to walk back in the restaurant with all my friends and family hanging out, looking at me, just kind of gave them the thumbs up, and they went crazy. It was a whole lot of fun, and then obviously. Come draft day, I already knew where I was going, so it was easy and low stress for me. So I loved it. It was an awesome time. Went out to dinner with a bunch of friends and family after that in New York City, and then I was in Detroit the next day. So it was a quick turnaround.
Before the rookie wage scale, good for you, buddy. I'm really happy for you too, by the way. I know that was nice. I got a question for you though. I think obviously with Detroit now being in the sitting at the third overall pick here, hearing a lot of talks, they might drop down maybe to 5 or 6. I know they don't want to move too far, but what's some advice you might give a young guy who might be in that spot of coming in as the third overall pick, a lot of pressure to come in and perform? What's some advice you might give to a young guy?
I think the biggest thing for me that was it was just the beginning. A lot of these guys and myself included, everybody's that gets drafted. That was one of their goals. You just got to make sure that that's not the final goal. The final goal wasn't to go number 1 or number 100 and something, whatever you went. And that it's to go in and make a name for yourself in that team. And that takes a lot of hard work from that point on. And I think the veterans on the team, can feel that. If you walk in and say, man, I made it, I got drafted, that's not a good look. But if you can walk in and say, I've got an opportunity, now I got to go prove myself as a player in this league and make a name for myself and help my team win, then that's really what you're looking for as a veteran, seeing a young guy come in. That's the kind of attitude you want to see.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't
Matthew,
matter. You try to tell these young guys all the time. Sorry, Tori, was just to finish that. It doesn't matter what school you come from. It doesn't matter where you picked, right? I was a guy out of Eastern Michigan, Mac school, 4th round. It doesn't matter where you picked. Come in, work hard, grind. Guys don't care if you're a first-round pick or an undrafted free agent. They want to see you. How can you help the team, man? How can you come help us win?
No doubt.
Well said. Worth giving you the stage for, TJ. Matthew, I'm curious. Every night we have these draft calls with the players after they are picked in the first round, and something always sticks out to me. Usually the player says, I heard from Matthew Stafford after I was picked. He texted me or something like that. Why is that important to you? Why do you like reaching out to those guys?
I just want to, bring them along and let them know that I'm paying attention. The draft, like TJ already said, is an exciting time. It's football again, and obviously it feels a little bit different this year than it has in years past, for good reason. But I just think it's important to let those guys know that I'm there if they need me. I've been in Detroit besides Muehlbach about the longest of anybody, so I let them know welcome to the team, what we expect out of them, and if they need anything from me, just to help them along. It's a big transition in these guys' lives. They're coming from all over the country to move to Detroit and try and make our football team and help us be better. And I just want them to know that, I'm thinking about it and I'm trying to help them out as much as I can.
Yeah, switching gears here a little bit. I know it's obviously a tough time right now, difficult time for everybody. Kind of reminds me a little bit when we were going into our 3rd year during the 2011 lockout. There was no football, there was no OTAs, no off season. What are some things that you can remember going through that lockout, not having the ability to practice with the team throughout the summer? Are there any lessons? Are there any advantages or disadvantages that you learn from that year going into, when we eventually do start training camp? Hopefully we do. Are there any lessons that maybe you could share with the young guys who didn't go through that with us?
Yeah, that was a crazy time for me. I had gotten injured twice in my first 2 years and was coming off of a shoulder surgery in that off season. So I spent the majority of that off season down in Pensacola rehabbing an injury, rehabbing a surgery on my right shoulder. So it was a scary time for me. There was no football. I really couldn't throw at that point. Just kind of a lot of things up in the air, but I just tried to work my tail off and make sure that I was ready to go when the opportunity came and we got to play again. We got together at a certain point in June as an offense, and and got some work done up in Michigan. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity, if we don't have OTAs and mini camps, to at least travel some and find some fields a little bit closer to training camp. And I think the biggest thing is just you got to stay motivated. You got to make sure that you're doing what you have to do, and understand that you're not doing it just for you. You're doing it for the guys across the country sitting in their house that are probably like, you and me. I turned part of my garage into a gym, and I'm working out there and trying to find ways to make sure that I'm still sharp and ready to go come August.
All right, enough of the football talk. I want to talk about quarantine parenting. Matthew, what has it been like being in self-isolation with your family? What have you guys been doing to stay busy?
Well, you see my current look right now. It's brutal. But I'm just chasing babies around. I've got a pregnant wife. I got 3 little girls that I'm running around. Today we went for a walk down by the river around here, just like a little nature trail walk. Got a little workout in. It's been a blast to be around. It's been a ton of hard work. Not that I ever didn't have respect, but a whole new respect for people that stay at home and take care of a bunch of kids all day long. It's difficult. It's tough. They're trying, but it's also a whole lot of fun and really rewarding.
Well, I got one last question for you. I think, dating back maybe 3 years ago when we were doing the Talking with TJ, you kind of showed off your math skills a little bit. I just have one follow-up before we leave. Can you tell me, I'm just going to make a number up, okay? 9,758 times 618.
You said 9,758 times 616?
618.
Or 618.
618,
okay.
I think. 618.
Okay, that's
Let me type it in.
6030444. So 6,030,444. Is that right? I think that's right. I knew it.
It's nice just being good at everything, man. I gotta tell you, you just got it all, don't you? Good stuff, buddy, man. Take care. I hope you stay healthy. Give the fam the best from us over here, and hope you guys get back to football soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, TJ. Thanks, Tori. Good to see y'all.
You too, buddy.
All right, we caught up with one TJ. Let's bring in another, shall we? Joining me right now is Lions tight end and former first-round draft pick TJ Hawkinson. TJ, thank you so much for joining us on our virtual draft party. How are you holding up over there in quarantine?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. I'm back in Iowa right now. Just training in a garage, got a good setup on. So was back at the University of Iowa training there and doing some physical therapy and stuff. So now I'm just rehabbing and doing some training in a garage. So
you do what you got to do. What does the garage setup look like?
It's really nice actually. Powerlift hooked me up pretty well. So doing some squats, we got a big old squat rack. We got glute ham raise machine and everything. So they did a really good job, and they really appreciate them for doing that. So.
Sounds like a pretty good workout setup. I need one like those.
Yeah.
Thank you, TJ, for chatting a little bit with us tonight on draft night. This night looks a whole lot different than it did 1 year ago. This time last year, you and I hadn't really met each other yet, but we chatted on the red carpet of the NFL draft. We didn't know yet that you were going to be a Lion. And then, of course, the Lions selected you in the first round of the 2019 draft. What do you recall from that draft night?
I just remember the nerves. That was the biggest thing, is you don't really know what's going to happen. And you had to keep that in mind. You had an idea where you were going to go, but you didn't really have, that wasn't for sure. So just being able to have the mental game and being able to mentally check in and just be, there with your family. They do such a great job. Last year they did it in Nashville. Now that they're doing this virtual stuff, I'm sure they'll do a really good job with that too. So.
All right, so you said you had teams in mind. Did you have the Lions in mind before the draft started last year?
Yeah, I definitely did. But you just never know where you're gonna go. And when 7 came and then 8, and then I was like, okay, perfect. When I got the call from Bob and Mrs. Ford and all those guys. So It was a night to remember for sure.
Well, on a traditional draft night, I would be on site at the draft like I was in Nashville the night that you got drafted. Chased you down, picked up on what your track was as you're doing your little media tour after the draft, and we caught up. You showed me those Lion socks. I think that was a fan favorite part of last year's draft.
For sure. No, that was like I told you guys that Lion King was one of my favorite movies. So a big Disney guy. So yeah, no, that was pretty cool being drafted by the Lions and having those on. So.
Good memories for sure. Things will look so much different for this year's draft picks. I know you have some friends who are entering the draft this year. What do you think it's going to be like for them? Because they don't get to go and be on site and have the traditional draft experience.
Right, for sure. I think they're a little bummed that they're not going to be able to go and, be around a bunch of people. But on the same hand, it's still a special night. You get to live a childhood dream of theirs, and I think they're very excited about that. So, they have nothing but good things to say about this. So.
What have your chats been like with those guys, your former Iowa teammates who are in this year's draft?
Yeah, I mean, they're just saying, that they're going to hang out with their parents and, because they're already quarantined with them. So they're going to hang out with them and have a big old Zoom, with the rest of the family. So I think that's kind of their plans, with, Tristan and, all those guys, AJ. I think they're really excited for that night. So.
Where will you be watching the draft from?
I'm back at home in Iowa, Sheridan, so I'll be watching it with my family and just staying safe. So
hopefully reliving a few of those really exciting memories from Nashville last year. TJ, thank you so much for hanging out with us, fans. We will have so much more in our draft party coming up.
For sure. Appreciate you, Tori.
When you're home, there's nothing like enjoying a classic with a classic. Miller Lite. Great taste and only 96 calories.
Welcome into the Lions virtual draft party presented by Miller Lite. I'm Tori Petry. We are talking to so many different guests tonight about tonight's NFL draft. We figured who better to talk about the draft than the Lions coordinator? So we are joined by Lions defensive coordinator Cory Undlin. Cory, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Tell us a little bit about what it's been like preparing for the first ever virtual draft.
Yeah, it's been crazy. First and foremost, I would like to send out, obviously, my best regards, thoughts, prayers for everybody in the city of Detroit, Michigan. Guys are fighting, man. Keep it up. We'll make it out of this. Yeah, it's been a little bit different, obviously. I would say we've done a good job, Matt and Bob, of making it as best as we can due to the situation. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts, emails, all of that. But we're making it the best we can. So it's been positive under these circumstances. I would say that.
Well, I won't ask you anything about any specific players in this year's NFL draft, but what do you think of the defensive talent overall?
Yeah, it's a pretty deep pool. There's a lot of good players, from the defensive line to the linebackers to the secondary. I think it's pretty obvious that there's a few players up there at the top, but we'll see how tonight goes. And I think once we're done with this first round, I think Bob and Matt have got, after all the preparation, everything that goes into this thing, they've got a good grip on it. And I think we're going to feel really good when we're done with round one tonight.
Well, at least we know maybe there's a little bit of accuracy when it comes to what the analysts say about this year's class. Thank you so much, Cory, for joining us.
You're welcome. All the best to everybody.
Love Cory's hat and Detroit background, by the way. Let's move on to bringing in offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell. Darrell, I see you got the quarantine beard going. How are you holding up over there?
Yeah, I'm holding up well. I just said I'm not doing anything till we're done. And then this is what happens when you have 4 girls in your house. So they decided to bleach my hair, which I've never done in my life either. So we're having a good time over here.
I love it. You got to stay busy somehow. I'm sure you guys have been busy as well with all the draft prep. We asked Cory, I'll ask you, what has it been like trying to do all this virtually?
Yeah, it's a little different, you had to get used to the technology and the way to be able to use that at your house, and you don't have some of the same support that you normally do at the office. But it's all on our iPads or on our surfaces here. So we're able to still get all our work done, going through, each and every position, also staying in contact with all the coaches as well, trying to come up with our lists, and we're excited about today.
We're very excited as well. A lot of the talk tonight has been understandably at the defensive positions when it comes to the first round of the draft, but wide receiver is one of the deepest spots in this draft, at least according to all the analysts. Won't ask you about any specific players or positions, but just what do you think of the offensive talent in this year's draft?
Yeah, there's some great talent. The thing that's fun is to be able to evaluate all the guys and then, really see where they go, but hope you get them, and I mean, there's some really talented players. And it's sometimes frustrating to do some of the work and then see him go somewhere else, with the guy that you would really like to have on your team. But like you said, the receiver class is deep, and there's good players at each and every position.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing how all of this plays out. Tell your daughters, great job on the styling there. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Well, those two guys will certainly be a crucial part of tonight's draft. Another crucial part of tonight's draft is that it is actually a draft-a-thon. The league has turned this into a charity initiative. So we are bringing in Lions Senior Director of Detroit Lions Charities, Jen McCollum, to chat about the draft-a-thon with us. Jen, welcome into the show.
Hey, Tori, how are ya?
I'm doing so good. We are figuring out what this draft looks like. It is virtual. Everything will be different this year, but it has presented a very unique opportunity for us to kind of give back. Tell us what the whole Draft-a-thon initiative is about.
Absolutely. So given everything that's going on in the world right now, I think the hope is that the draft is providing a sense of community and excitement and hope for the season. But using this platform, we thought, what better way to give back and shine a light on what's going on and the hard work that's being done in response to the COVID-19 crisis than to host a draft-a-thon. So tonight, the NFL teams across the league are championing support for nonprofits doing the work in their local communities. So the Lions in particular have selected Feeding America as our beneficiary. So teams, players, fans can go online to nfl.com/relief and make donations and know that here in Michigan, support raised goes directly back into the community, into the food pantries that Feeding America is working with right now and getting the food out to the people who need it most.
I love that it's actually coming back to Michigan. Now, it isn't just an overall league initiative. The head coach and the GM have jumped in with their own ways to contribute, as well as Mrs. Ford. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we selected Feeding America, which was amazing, and we were really excited to engage fans in supporting here locally. But as you mentioned, Bob Quinn, Coach Patricia, Rod Wood, and Mrs. Ford have stepped up. So all are making personal contributions, and on behalf of Mrs. Ford and the Lions, we're making a $500,000 contribution to Feeding America for Draft-a-thon tonight.
Wow, that is so cool. I love that this is being used for good. What does it mean to you to be able to jump in and be a part of something bigger than just this virtual draft because of the opportunity that we have here?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, I think, for our entire organization to be a part of this. We've been facilitating a lot locally on behalf of the organization and players over the last few weeks, but this is even bigger, joining the NFL across the country, engaging fans. It's pretty incredible.
It really is. Okay, say I'm a fan, I'm watching the draft tonight. I want to participate in Draft-a-thon. I want to give back to Feeding America and have that funds go back into the Detroit community. What do I do?
Yep, you can go to nfl.com/relief and make a donation.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Jen, for joining us here on our virtual draft party. Fans, stick with us because we have chats with TJ Lang.
When you're home, there's nothing like enjoying a classic with a classic. Miller Lite, great taste and only 96 calories.
Welcome back to the Lions virtual draft party presented by Miller Lite. I am Tori Petry. We have had a plethora of fun guests joining us tonight. Maybe none as fun as the next one that we have joining us, Lions legend Barry Sanders. Barry, thank you so much for hopping on this virtual party with us. It is so good to see you.
It's great to be here, Tori. How's it going?
It's going good. We are making the most of this situation. I'm curious what you think of just how the draft is tonight. It's all going to be virtual. It's something we've never seen before. What do you make of all this?
I mean, it's just bizarre, honestly, and really just trying to wrap my mind around it. It's, the fact that it's 2020, it's sort of a throwback honestly to my day when we all did it from home, basically, and sat by the phone waiting for the phone call. Of course, there wasn't much video or cool technology back then, but yeah. So it's just kind of bizarre, but we're making the most of it.
Well, you can kind of relate then to what the draft picks are going through tonight, albeit maybe without the technology. Tell us what memories you have from the night that you were drafted.
I was so tense and uptight. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as my family, honestly, because I didn't know what was happening because, just a few months earlier, I was thinking I was going to stay in school. But Coach Funch told me that if I was still there at number 3, they want to pick me, and I got the call. We were able to clear the line at the house, and I got the call, and I was excited to be heading to Detroit. And of course, my family, I'm from a big family, and they just went nuts just because it was such a great day in our life. And, so yeah, it was a really exciting and fun day for us.
Well, we don't know who that number 3 pick is going to be tonight, but what advice would you give that player if you could talk to him?
I would say, just kind of try to take it in stride. It's sort of like other things maybe you've experienced where you're coming into a new situation, even similar to when you came into college as a freshman. You kind of have to go back to the back of the line, work your way up, and start over again. And that's kind of a lot what it's like being coming into the NFL. Of course, there's the other side of it where you're receiving a lot of attention and there's a lot of expectations, and people have their hopes and dreams invested in you. And so you really have to make sure you pay attention to those details, the things that got you there, and really understand that as good a player as you are, there's a lot that you still need to work on and learn in this game.
Well, players would be wise to take advice from Barry Sanders. We've heard a lot from the mock drafts. We've got guys like Isaiah Simmons, Jeff Okudah, Derek Brown potentially going to the Lions, at least according to the analysts. What do you think of the Lions going defense in the first round?
I think that that probably makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've got some defensive holes, I guess. Some places where we need to fill a few gaps in the defense. The few players you just mentioned, Simmons, Brown, and Okudah, I mean, fantastic players. Simmons just a long athletic athlete, makes plays all over the place, kind of an outside linebacker guy. Derek Brown, just kind of a big beast, in the middle. Just a big guy. He's 300 plus pounds, 6'5", runs well. And you would think that if you're starting a defense, you want a guy like him plugging up the middle. And then Okudah, he just always around the ball, making plays, knocking balls down, getting interceptions. Those are three strong picks. If I had to pick one, I would maybe lean toward Brown, just because, defensively you want to shore things up front. A guy that can be good in the run and pass, and then work from there. But, but I don't think you could go wrong with either one of those.
Well, time is ticking down to when we will finally find out who that pick will be. Barry, how will you be watching the draft tonight?
Oh, I'll be there. I'll be there, man. I'll well, not there, obviously, literally, but I'll be watching. I'll be watching on my telly, and anxiously awaiting what the Lions do if we stay there at number 3 or if we make some moves.
Right. I mean, what's your prediction for the night? Do the Lions stay at 3? Do they trade back? I know you like Brown. What's your bold prediction for what will happen when that number 3 pick comes around?
I mean, I'm thinking we're gonna stay at 3. I tend to like the number 3 since that's where I was picked, so I think there's some good synergy there. And so I think you're more likely to get a better player at number 3, right? So I tend to go with that, just because, hey, look, you're only two players off the board. You got the whole draft, the whole inventory of players to choose from, and so why not stay there?
Well, Barry, thank you so much for your time and for weighing in on what the Lions might do at number 3. Now, the guy who is in charge of deciding what will happen at number 3 is Lions general manager Bob Quinn. He's a busy guy tonight, so we actually got to catch up with him earlier in the week to talk to him about what could happen in tonight's draft. Take a look. Bob, thank you so much for joining us virtually here. I know things are crazy getting ready for this virtual draft. How are things going over at the Quinn household?
Things are good. We're, a little over a day out of the draft, and the setup's coming along really nicely, and comfortable with where we're at from, obviously the most important thing is getting the draft board right, and kind of put the final finishing touches on that this morning, and kind of just doing our pre-draft calls to the other teams and just making sure everything's up and running.
Yeah, last we talked, you said you were fielding some calls maybe for some trades potentially in this draft. I know you can't tell us everything, but where are things at with that? Still picking up the phones on that stuff?
Yeah, there's always calls coming back and forth. We communicate every year with all 31 other teams to kind of see where they're at. Do some of those calls myself, some of my staff members handle some of the other ones. So that's a normal thing for us. Obviously this year we're picking a little higher, so there's a little bit more conversation now up near the top, which is good. And, we'll kind of roll into tomorrow and see if we can, have any of those further conversations. But as of right now, we're just planning on, setting up for the draft and making the Lions a better team.
We've clearly got a good setup going there. I mean, I see a very decorative background behind you. I know that you've got everything ready to go for the draft on Thursday night. Give me a sense of what you're working with there in your little office from home.
Yeah, it's been evolving, I'd say, over the last 4 weeks. Slowly, we've gotten more technology put in, thanks to our crack IT staff, led by Steve Lancaster and Levi Wilson. They've both done an outstanding job for us, getting everything rolling here. So, my setup is a bigger TV over to my right. I have 2 computers. I have 3 monitors. I have a big, what we call the Draft-a-thon, which has speed dials to all 30 or 31 other teams, and also about six lines to the league office for trades, etc. Multiple cell phones, a landline, my home phone in case something goes wrong, and multiple redundancies in terms of wireless internet, wired internet, and power. So we have it all here.
All thanks to one of the behind-the-scenes heroes, Steve Lancaster, who went a little bit viral this week because of the situation that he's in, staying in a Winnebago outside your driveway. Tell us about that setup.
Yeah, well, I want to clarify, a little thing there. He hasn't been staying here yet, so let's clear that up here for the fans. Steve will be here on Thursday night, and just obviously with my family being here, Steve's been at home at his house. He's been over my house a couple times to set a few things up, but he came up with a great idea to rent a Winnebago just for the weekend. So he'll be driving back and forth from his house to my house, but he'll be parked in my driveway during the hours of the draft.
Well, we are certainly appreciative of all those people who are working behind the scenes to pull this off. Now, you guys did a practice draft with the league earlier in this week. How did that go? How do you think this is all going to look?
It's going to be different for sure. The conference call, the mock draft we had with the league on Monday, from our end, from the Lions end, went fine. As I stated before, there was just a few issues with the all 32 conference call, which three members of your staff can be on that conference call. So myself and two of my staff members was on it, and just a few people didn't mute at the right time. But once we got going, it was fine. It just took maybe a couple extra minutes to get the ball rolling.
Come on, muting a conference call, that is conference call 101. I am sure the teams will have everything all figured out by the time draft night comes around. Tell me what these last couple of weeks have looked like for you. I know you guys have been working hard, but give us a picture of a day in the life in your home war room getting ready for a virtual draft.
Yeah, once we kind of were working from home, it started about a couple of days after free agency. I've been home, and we kind of just transitioned everything that we were going to try to do in person, whether that's the 30 visits or the pro days. Really have our coaches, do Zoom calls with the prospects that they would actually normally see at a pro day setting. And then obviously for the top 30 visits that we would have into Detroit, we did that over Zoom as well. So we kind of, duplicate the best we could, the things that we would normally do in the draft process and the draft prep. Obviously, there was a lot of film that we could watch, and a lot of meetings we just did virtually. So we would get on a call every night and talk about the draft board and recap the day's events of the Zoom calls. Because really, we picked about, I think it was about 7 or 8 days, and we did, about 6 guys per day on Zoom. So that took up a good chunk of the day, and we usually started those at 9 a.m. So we had time in the morning before that to start working, and then we would do our evening calls at night. So it's been good. It's been really smooth. Obviously, heading into it, you're a little bit nervous about how it's going to run, but once we kind of get in the groove of learning to use the new technology and learning to teach the players how to use that sometimes, that was interesting on a few occasions. Everything's been going well.
Now, do you have a physical draft board in your home office there?
I do not. No, I do not. I have a couple large whiteboards that are magnetic. One of them has our depth chart on it. A couple of them are to my left are blank right now that I'll be writing notes on during the draft. But we'll use a draft board that's on a document.
All right. Good to know. Now, when we are in Allen Park for draft night, there's always a big setup for you guys. You guys are all set and ready to go with the draft food outside the war room, all like that. What are you doing to make this draft feel as close to normal as possible when you're doing it from home?
Yeah, it's abnormal, right? It's different, and so everything's going to be a little bit different this year in terms of my kids have been great. My wife and kids have been great giving me privacy. So we'll probably have a normal, hopefully, family dinner Thursday, probably a little earlier than normal. Get that kind of out of the way. Usually we eat around 6:30 or 7. Probably be a little bit earlier this Thursday and Friday. But we'll try to do that. I'll probably try to get out of the house for an hour or so, take a bike ride or a walk or something to kind of just get some fresh air, and then we'll get on our conference call, our video conference about an hour before the draft, just to make sure everything's tested and everything's working smoothly, and away we'll go at 8 o'clock on Thursday night.
Well, we cannot wait for the draft to kick off. Bob, best of luck to you and your staff. I know things have been absolutely crazy getting ready for this. We appreciate you taking the time to chat with us here on our draft show.
Yep. Good seeing you, Tori. Hope everything's, safe with everyone out there for our fans. And we look forward to providing a little bit of relief for everyone to kind of be able to tune into some, live TV and be able to get away from this a little bit, but knowing, the real important heroes here are the people at the front lines, the doctors and the hospital workers and the delivery people and, everybody out there, the grocery store workers that are really, running this country right now. So hopefully we provide a little relief to that, but quickly when the draft's over, our focus is going to be back to making sure that everyone in this area is really taken care of. We've partnered with Feeding America for our Draft-a-thon, so I think our fans should probably log on to our website, take a look at that, and kind of see what that's all about. I think that's a great thing that our organization is doing with the help from the league.
Cannot wait to see what he does with that number 3 pick tonight. Fans, you don't want to miss a game at Ford Field this season with opponents including the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That means seeing the Lions take on Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, the New Orleans Saints, and the Houston Texans. There's still time to secure your season ticket membership for the best seat locations, exclusive events, and discounts on Lions merchandise starting at only $38 per month. To learn more about the 12-month payment plan option, call 313-262-2222 now to speak with the Lions representative or visit DetroitLions.com. Yes, you can do that right now during our virtual draft party. While you're at it, go ahead and download the Detroit Lions mobile app for one final night of trivia on the app, as well as draft bingo that goes the rest of the draft weekend. That'll be a whole lot of fun. Stick around, guys. We'll be back with Chris Spielman after the break.
When you're home, there's nothing like enjoying a classic with a classic. Miller Lite, great taste and only 96 calories.
All right, welcome back into the Lions virtual draft party presented by Miller Lite. I'm Tori Petry. Now for the part of the show we talked about at the beginning, Lions legend Chris Spielman is joining us to talk a little bit about this draft night. Chris, how's it going over there?
It's going great. I'm excited. I've been tweeting all day about the Lions and picks and just getting people's thoughts. And I think the Lions, Tori, are in a great position. They're in a position of power. And I'm just looking up at the screen. Ian Rappaport is reporting that there's a lot of movement happening at number 3 and 5. So we'll see what they do.
We will see what they will do. All right, I'll ask you first and foremost, what do you think? Do they stay at 3? Do they trade back? If they stay at 3, who do they pick? There's so many things to think about, but what is your ultimate prediction at number 3 tonight?
Oh, well, I think they can stay at, if they stay at 3, then you go Okudah or Simmons. I prefer Okudah, not to say anything about Simmons, because I think Simmons is a great player. He would also be a great pick. I just know when you look at the 32nd ranked defense, pass defense in the league, and you play a ton of man like the Lions do, why not go get the best man corner available, plus a bigger corner, which Jeff is, solid run support guy to help your pass defense along with your free agent acquisitions. But I think they can get him at 5. I do think Miami is really after Tua. I think Tua is the number 1 quarterback after Joe Burrow. I think all the Herbert stuff was smoke and mirrors, and it depends on how desperate Miami is. I know this, that Bob Quinn is in a position of power, and he's not going to give it away without getting something besides the 5. I think you need to get a lot more for that. And I think he will, because I think Miami's that desperate. Plus, Miami has a lot of capital with 14 total picks.
Well, one of the first things that you tweeted today was, are any other Lions fans waking up like me thinking that the Lions might trade that number 3 pick? So obviously you've had that feeling all day today. I wonder what feeling Bob Quinn is having right now. Because of the draft being virtual, it's actually really cool. The league has actually had all of the GMs set up cameras inside of their home war room. So hopefully we can get you a look inside of those home war rooms right now. It's pretty cool to kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what is going on at Bob Quinn's house, at Matt Patricia's house. Obviously, we heard from Bob Quinn earlier about the director of IT sitting out in his driveway in that Winnebago. So I think things are going well so far. Chris, I'm curious from you, what do you think some of the challenges will be of the draft being virtual tonight?
I think just communication with the scouts and with the training staff, and the fact that, first of all, you know, Tori, my brother's also in his bunker, and he has his IT guy sitting out in the driveway, and they have a camera on them. And I believe the rule is, maybe you know this for sure, they're not allowed to be out of sight of that camera for more than a 3-minute period. So it's a very challenging thing, but I think the communication has to be sure and sound. And, you know, you could have 5 different guys working trades on the phone. So I'm sure they went through this a million times. I talked to Rick about this, and I know that he will do 10,000 mock drafts just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, everybody's doing the same thing, and they have to plan for something breaking down. Like if you have some type of video system that you planned on using and it doesn't work, you got to have another video system to go to. And so I think they have all that worked out. It should be exciting. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, Chris, we know that you are an Ohio State guy, and there are a couple of real big Ohio State guys there. Yeah, look, you came prepared. I love it. I love it. There's a couple of Ohio State guys who are going to have a pretty big night tonight. I'm curious, Ohio State guys who aren't Ohio State players, this is a fan question. They want to know, who do you want the Lions to take tonight?
I want them to trade because I think they can either get Simmons or Okudah at 5, because I do believe the Giants at 4 are going to go offensive tackle. They almost have to. I did a few Giants games last year in their offensive line. Plus, you have Daniel Jones, of course, who you want to protect. So I'd be happy with Okudah or Simmons. I like Simmons because I think of his versatility, right, Tori? I mean, you know what he can do. And one thing I think Matt covets in linebackers is their ability to play different linebacker positions. So that's a good thing. The one thing I wouldn't do is take the defensive lineman, was it Derek Brown out of Auburn? Only for this reason. I'm not saying he's not a great player, wouldn't be an impact player, but defensive linemen, especially interior guys, are rotational players. That's what they are, because they're 300 plus pounds, 310, 315. They're going to be guys that will probably play, a guy like him will probably play 55 to 65% of the plays. Well, you get Isaiah Simmons or Jeff Okudah, those guys are going to contribute to your defense immediately with 90 to 95% of the plays. So that's kind of my preference right now. And because of need, here's another thing, Tori, because of the situation that we're all in, I believe this just doesn't go for the Lions. It goes for everybody. They're going to take the safest pick possible. And what I mean by that, the safest pick possible, not only on the field, but off the field, because they haven't had the time to spend with these guys and sit across from them man to man. I mean, they've done like you and I, but it's not the same as having an in-person conversation and look a young man in the eyes and really get to invest in and know him. And the other thing, I thought Bob Quinn said a lot about this and about college free agents and maybe some of the guys drafted later. You know, it's tough to get an evaluation on because at this point it doesn't look like we're going to have OTAs as a league. Well, that's big for young players in their development, both mentally and physically, and they're not going to have that luxury. So if I'm Bob, my suggestion would be, and I think this is going to be the case for most general managers, you take the safest pick possible that you see can has the best chance of contributing on the field right away as soon as you can, or be a major contributor and doesn't have any issues off the field. That's, I think, the way this is going to be, where in years past, you know, there might be a guy in the 3rd round and you think, man, in a year, this guy is going to be a huge player and developmental wise, but he needs a year to learn. I don't think the Lions have that luxury this year. I think this is a win now mentality. Everybody understands what Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, the pressure that they're under this year. It's a win now, and you need to get 2.5 starters out of this draft, in my opinion.
All right, real quick, we have time for one more fan question. They want to know, could you see the Lions packaging a trade with getting a veteran player that's maybe a cornerback, and then go ahead and take Simmons in the draft since you got a corner or a veteran player in the trade?
Well, I think you already got your veteran corner in Trufant, right? You already got one, and you have Coleman out there at the other corner. Then I don't see them doing that because the shelf life of a corner, and this is not my opinion, this is analytics speaking, is 27, 28 years old. Then they start entering the fourth quarter of their career. Darius Slay was a great player. I love this competitiveness, but he's entering the fourth quarter of his career. And when those guys hit a wall, they hit a wall. See Minnesota, who just lost 3 of their corners, Trey Wayne, Xavier Rhodes, and Mackenzie Alexander. And they lost in the free agency. And in Xavier's case, he's only 29 years old, but he hit the wall. So you have to kind of replenish that position. And the other thing to note is linebackers. Now, Isaiah Simmons is a unique talent. Don't get me wrong. But linebackers you can find, right? Corners and offensive tackles, you're going to see possibly 8 offensive tackles taken in the first round and probably 6 corners in the first round. Why? Because you can't find them. You just can't find them on the street. And if a guy's available on the street via trade or free agency and he's not good enough to play for that other team, why do we want him?
Totally understand. All right, Chris, thank you so much for hopping in and giving us some insight. I'll ask you one more question. How do you plan on watching the NFL draft tonight?
I plan on sitting right where I am, looking up at the TV. I'm going on with Dan Miller at Fox 2. Then I think I'm coming back with you tomorrow night. I hope so. But are we doing this tomorrow night? Are you doing this?
Yep. That's the
All
plan.
right.
We will be chatting tomorrow with you and fans. I want to remind you guys that we are actually going to be live later on in the draft after the Lions make their first pick. Hopefully we will be catching up with that pick via video chat, and then we will be going live to break down the pick. TJ Lane will be joining us again for that. We will have the video of the pick. Hopefully we will maybe have some behind the scenes footage from Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia's home video cameras there, capturing all the action in their war rooms. We really appreciate you guys joining in on this live stream on our virtual draft party. Chris, thanks so much for being our final guest. We've really enjoyed having you.
All right. I can't wait. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. Let's talk to you tomorrow.
All right, Chris, we will see you tomorrow. Fans, thanks so much for joining us. It is time for the 2020 NFL Draft. We will see you after the Lions make their selection.